The journey begins at the narrow gate. The journey, Jesus beckons me to roam. The journey, where the path is straight. The journey takes me home. The journey takes me home.
Welcome. Glad you could join us in the journey today. I'm glad you're with us. This morning I have with me another one of the elders from the church, Randy Calm. And Randy, thank you for joining us.
Well, it's good to be here, Michael.
Well, I'm glad you're here, Randy. This is going to be like last week. Ray and I had a lot of fun. Here we go. Before we begin, I should let people know that this is the last episode of our first season of the journey. We will continue. We'll take a break for August, and we'll continue again when September rolls around. So you get to be the season closer. Yeah,
I hope I'm up to it.
Well, you know, they always keep the best guys in the bullpen and bring them out to close. So you're
ready, Coach.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, Randy, you and I got together and we able to talk about your journey, which was pretty interesting, and I enjoyed getting together with you. So
it's interesting that you say that because it doesn't seem interesting to me.
Well, I guess it's
New Year's.
It's always more interesting hearing someone else's, I suppose.
That's right. Yes.
Why don't you start us off on your journey, where it began, how it all started?
Well, like everybody else, I was born. That would be January 1948, Evanston, Illinois. First suburb north of Chicago, on the beautiful shores of Lake Michigan. Wonderful, wonderful place to grow up. We lived for the first 4 years of my life in Chicago. We lived in Andersonville, they called it. It was the enclave of the Swedes, Norwegians. There were neighborhoods back then. There was the Irish neighborhood, the Polish neighborhood. So, you know, tribalism.
Right. So you were part of the Swedish Scandinavian.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so we lived there on Paulina Street for the first 4 years. Always went to the same church. We drove up to Evanston every Sunday and Wednesdays and Sunday nights.
Yeah, you were there quite a bit.
Back then, there were morning, evening, Sunday, and Wednesday services, although I didn't go to many of those, but I remember a few. It was the Swedish Evangelical Swedish Mission Covenant Church. And I think now it's the Evangelical Mission Covenant Church. But it was the church we went to, the only church I ever went to growing up was that church. And
that was a family church, right? I mean,
well, yes, my grandparents were the young people's club, and I have a picture at home with the oval pictures from probably the turn of the century. My grandfather was born in the early 1880s, and so they're the ones who started this particular church, and the cornerstone on it says 1910, so it's been around a long time. So that's where we went to church from the time I was born until I graduated from college. My mother went to it, grew up in it. I have an actual picture of Warner Sallman's iconic Christ head picture that my mother got presented to her by Warner Sallman, the artist, rather famous guy. He painted that in 1940, and he presented it to my mom in 1942 with his signature and an inscription that said, "Congratulations for 21 years of perfect Sunday school attendance."
Wow.
So my mother was a saint.
Yeah.
I mean, who does that?
21 years
21
without missing
years.
a Sunday school.
I mean, wow.
Wow. Yeah.
I
Not
don't
even our Sunday school teachers do that.
Well, I don't know of anybody. I was wondering if it was true, but I guess it is
Because you have the picture to prove it.
I have the picture to prove it, and I have it proudly on my wall at home. And you know, so that church was an integral part of life.
Yeah, clearly.
Um,
Because you had cousins there and aunts
Oh,
and
yes.
uncles. And,
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
aunts and
yeah.
uncles. And so as I grew up, I knew all these people,
Right.
old,
Mhm.
like me now. You know, and I look back at this picture, and that's when they were in their 20s, probably.
Okay.
And so I am them. Anyway, you know, it was wonderful. It was just life. I knew nothing else.
Right. Right.
You know, Christmas pageants and plays and children's choir.
Were you always a shepherd or a wise man or something?
Yeah, I was in the background.
Yeah. I find that hard to believe.
Well, I was.
I think you might have made your way up front. I don't know.
No. So I went through confirmation there, and, you know.
Yeah, you told me that story about that. Want to tell me?
Oh, confirmation, yes. Well, in our youth group, which was a fairly sizable one, but there were only a couple of us who were a year younger than most. Okay, so when confirmation time came, which was 7th and 8th grade was confirmation. It was a 2-year program. You had to go every Saturday morning for a couple hours. And, you know, there was 3 of us who were in the 6th grade. Everybody else was in the 7th. And so it's a 2-year program. You were supposed to graduate in the 8th grade. And so there were 3 of us a year younger, you know, and so that was kind of daunting, being younger, and but I managed to make it through, and so the spring of my 7th grade year, we had the ceremony, and before the ceremony,
Yeah, you got to tell this part.
you had there was the exam, and so we were all lined up at a long table and down in the basement, and here was the congregation all in the basement staring at us. And so they would go down the line and ask theological questions, and you had to answer them from our learning, and we had to recite the 23rd Psalm, the Lord's Prayer, and several other things, and it was grueling, to say the least.
Especially your 7th grader.
Yeah. And we even had to, during this 2 years, we each had to give a little mini sermon.
Oh, really?
Feature that.
Wow.
Up in the church. Oh my heavens. I remember my dad helping me extensively on it. But we all managed to pull it off.
Well, that's good to know, because after we're done the book of Matthew,
oh yes,
we're going to sit you at the table and we're going to ask questions. And
I don't do that.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
I'm retired.
Okay.
This is as far as I'm going.
Oh, all right. Okay, we've arrived. Okay. We'll see. So you go through confirmation. interesting that I mean, for 2 years, every Saturday morning, you were at the church.
Yes.
And that kind of messed up your whole sports life.
Well, yes, I was in a Y club. And so all our flag football games and basketball games were on Saturday mornings. And so there were some I could make because, you know, there was Christmas vacation and times like that when there weren't games, or I mean, there wasn't confirmation for a week or two maybe.
Because maybe the pastor was sick and you're like,
yes, I can't do this. so I mean, I managed to play enough, but it was hard. I didn't want to be there, but I was.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I better be.
Well, it was a family expectation.
Well, yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes, my older sister Cherry and younger sister Chris were a little over 4 years apart. And so, yes, we all did it diligently.
Right.
And I mean, it was, you know, it was just life. That was so what life was. I didn't know any other way. I had friends at school, you know, who didn't go to church. There are a lot of churches in Evanston. And so a lot of kids did. But a lot of them didn't.
Right.
Had no idea.
Yeah.
And so, it was comforting, comfortable. Because I started here.
Right.
There I was.
Yeah.
I don't mind this.
Yeah.
It was boring sometimes.
Sure. But
my parents would be up in the choir, you know, looking down at us.
Yeah.
You know, so you could not hide. That's all right.
And then you entered high school.
I did. So in my life, I went to I went to kindergarten at Pierce School in Chicago, but Lincolnwood in Evanston was the grade school. Haven in Evanston was the junior high. And Evanston High School was the high school. So we didn't move around.
Right.
I mean, it was like rock solid. This is your life. You're going to be here.
Right.
I mean, my mom's family and us were in that house for 68 years. And 1930 to 1998, I think it was. She grew up in that house. Went to the same high school we all did.
Wow. Yeah.
My dad was from Chicago, down in Andersonville. And where was I? What's the next question?
You were in Evanston.
Yes, still there.
And you made a comment, it was kind of like Leave It to Beaverland sort of thing.
Well, yes, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, everything was there. There was downtown, it was a 30-minute bike ride to the lake. Our bikes were kind of our motorcycles.
Yeah, right.
You know, it was pretty idyllic when I look back on it. It was solid and unwavering.
Right. Yeah.
Very comforting for a kid.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
It's not that I wasn't a jerk, but
we all have it in us.
yes, we do.
So then you went, after high school, you graduated and had a football scholarship.
Yes, I did. I was kind of successful in high school football, so I got a full ride to Iowa State University. That's in Ames, Iowa. Well, you don't know.
I don't.
And when I say Iowa State, 90% of the people say, "Oh, you went to Iowa?" No. You know, like Washington State.
Right.
Get it?
Okay, now I get it.
So I took offense to that. Anyway, we were in the Big 8. At that time, it was the Big 8. It's the Big 12. You don't care anything about this, I know.
Well, it's a little beyond me.
You, Canadian native, you don't care about football.
Well, you have one less, one more down than you really need.
Well, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
So, your coach, I had to laugh when you told me, your coach won second place
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, this is some good trivia for perhaps our viewers out there who might care.
Not
Plus-
everybody's from Canada.
That's true. And plus, there are a number of elderly people like myself, so someone might remember this. Anyway, my first 2 years was Clay Stapleton was our head coach, and then to finish it out, a guy named
The guy who was really dear to you.
yeah.
Yeah. I didn't write that down, so
Yeah,
I can't
darn
help
it.
on that one.
Johnny Majors. I'm sorry.
Oh, really?
Johnny Majors. This was his first head coaching job, and he finished second place to Paul Hornung in the 1956 Heisman Trophy balloting.
Yeah, I do know the Heisman Trophy. And
Okay,
I know that's a deal.
So that was 1956, and actually I looked it up just yesterday, and the fifth place finisher was Jim Brown, the famous Cleveland player, running back, Jim Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Finished fifth.
How about that?
Yeah, I just learned that, so that was interesting.
Huh.
So yes,
I just had a new idea for a show. We could do like a trivia thing.
okay,
Okay, all right. Starting in September, trivia with Randy. Call in.
yes.
So during college, let's get back to college years.
Yes.
They weren't you never went through wild years.
Yes, I did.
Okay, you went through some wild years. All right. I wrote down that you never did, but apparently you did. Where were you at spiritually, college years and that sort of thing?
College years were, it took a back seat.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I was home, it was like automatic. This is what I do.
Sure.
This is my comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like this.
Mm-hmm.
I get stuff out of this.
Yeah.
I wasn't searching. I was comfortable.
Sure.
So in college, they had, of course, the Campus Crusade for Christ was big.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some guys on the football team who were really involved in that. And
Okay.
so, you know, I went to a few things, but I really didn't have time for God.
Right.
Hey, I don't need you.
Look what I have.
I'm my guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, a whole life of growing up suburban and, you know, in this zone of comfortable life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not rigid, but scheduled.
Mm-hmm.
And awesome. But now it was, I guess, time to break out. And I mean, playing football is very much like being in the Army, which I was never in. I mean, it was every day, all year long, you know,
Right.
every single day.
Right.
Training table for every meal. So it was like a business.
Sure.
So that was pretty all-encompassing.
Yeah.
So as time went on, you know, I mean, 62 was the Cuban Missile Crisis. I was in 8th grade then. 63 was Jack Kennedy assassination. And, you know, that was, I mean, I was a sophomore when Kennedy was assassinated. And that was worrisome. I'll never forget coming home from school and my mom was sitting on the couch watching television because, of course, Walter Cronkite was on with all of it and just weeping, you know. And it was scary.
Yeah.
You know. And then So, and then 68 was Martin Luther King, Bobby Kennedy.
Right. And it was in 68 you had a kind of a life-changing trip.
Yes, because I had received a football scholarship, my dad said that he would be happy to help me get a car or help me go to Europe, because he had gone to Europe in 1939 with 35, with an ensemble of 100 marimbas. And we still have his marimba. So they toured Europe with this 100 marimbas. And so he had been there, and it made an impact on him. And so he mentioned that. So a friend of mine at school, we went the summer of 68, and the summer of 68 was the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, which was turmoil. It was, Bobby Kennedy had just been murdered, and bombing of Cambodia was going on, and I mean, it was a
There's some turmoil.
tumultuous time.
Yeah.
So we took a boat over there, a student ship. Took about 6 days to get over there. Horribly seasick for one of those days.
Oh, really?
Took about 2 days out, and all of a sudden, oh no. But happily it went away. So going across the North Atlantic, they had a swimming pool which was never filled. It was about 20 feet square, and there was a net over it. Okay, and so this was early June, and it was like 45 degrees in the North Atlantic, and so it was there was never any swimming.
Yeah.
And so we landed in Le Havre, France, and had your rail passes. That was $140 for 2 months. You could just get on a train, go anywhere, get off, get on. So we landed, and we go, well, what do we do? Let's do this. And so for little over 2 months, we just gallivanted around, and it was the most eye-opening, incredible, beautiful, scary, awesome time. We were in Portugal and Spain and Italy, Austria, France, Scandinavian countries. My friend I went with had relatives up in Narvik, Norway, which is above the Arctic Circle. We were there for the solstice, and sun never went down. So we traveled around and saw things. One thing that really stuck with me was going to, we were in Germany, we were in Berlin, West Berlin. We took the train. Berlin was in East Germany. Okay, so from West Germany, you had to take a train to West Berlin. So West Berlin is this little enclave in the middle of East Germany. All right, well, not in the middle, but so we took a train, and on this train through East Germany, are all these soldiers, like conductors, only they're standing around with machine guns. And that was a happy train ride. And so we got to West Berlin, and West Berlin was, like normal somewhere in the U.S. So we had to go to East Berlin. And so they required you to transfer money.
Okay.
7 or 10 marks you had to. You'd pay them, they'd give you their worthless currency.
Yeah, right.
And then you could go in. So we went across to Checkpoint Charlie and spent a long, long day over there. And I'll never forget, this was 23 years after the war, so this was 68. And I mean, there were bombed out buildings still, and it was so very different from anything I'd ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And again, there were, soldiers walking around, machine guns. We went in to eat at a couple places, and it was just quiet talk. I mean, there was no joy. It was, and so that whole European experience opened my eyes to something other than suburbia.
Right.
It really changed my outlook. And I guess what I thought was important or cool, or it was life-changing.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't change it for anything.
Yeah.
That I was able to have that experience, because we didn't have a schedule. We were just knocking around. We were good planners because we took a boat across the English Channel to London and hitchhiking, and this guy picks us up, and nice guy, and driving through the English countryside, and goes, "Oh, let's stop here." So we go into a little pub, and we were 20, couldn't drink here, but Europe, no problem. So he buys us a beer, and we chatted for a while, and just a great guy. And then he brought us into London, and we didn't have any money left, and our flight was the next day. So we're walking around, and we go to Hyde Park, and we lie down on the benches, and shortly after that, a bobby comes up, and bam, 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 move on. Oh, okay.
Right then.
So we basically moseyed around and sat around London overnight. Had a flight back the next day to New York and then Chicago. Came home to my house. Hub lived in Minneapolis, so he was at my place for another couple of days, and then flew home. And we came home with 79 cents in our pockets.
Wow.
It worked out good.
Yeah,
It worked out well.
It did.
Yeah, and there were no credit cards or calling home.
Right.
I remember writing postcards, and they showed up a week after we got home.
Yeah.
So that was awesome time.
Yeah. And then 1970, you graduate, and you have another life-changing event.
I do. There was a lot of unrest spring of 1970. There was Kent State, where the National Guard had live ammunition, opened fire, killed 4 students. And a couple of weeks later was Jackson State, where 2 students were killed. And there was a lot of unrest. Some universities let out early. It was kind of coming to a head, it seemed like, more and more from 68 to 70. It just kept getting more, I don't know, scary kind of.
Yeah.
A lot of unrest. So playing football, it was hard to keep up a full schedule, so I didn't graduate till the fall of 1970. So I went another quarter after. I can't remember if they had graduation that spring, because a lot of schools just let out and said, come back later.
Right.
So anyway, I was home and went over to my buddy's house, and he had a few people over there, and one of those people was Kathy. So that's when I met Kathy, May of 1970. So just last May was 50 years ago.
Wow.
we met, and I thought she was pretty cute. I guess maybe she thought I was too.
Evidently.
We hooked up, had a friendship going on that summer, and I went saw her at Michigan State. She was going to Michigan State at that time. She came to see me that fall in Ames, and it was kind of neat. And so I graduated that fall, and she had dropped out, and so we kind of were dating for several months, and we got jobs and we're working, and that spring we decided, let's strike out.
Yeah.
So we at that time you could get drive-away cars. You would go to a business, drive-away business, and people wanted their cars transported, and so you would give that company $100. You would go pick up the car, and you would have 5 to 7 days to drive out here. If you got a good company, they might give you $25 towards gas.
Okay.
A lot of them didn't. Anyway, you drove it out there, you delivered it to the office out there, and they'd give you your $100 back. And so
Wow.
that was how we went back and forth for 6 or 8 years.
Wow.
When we would travel back and forth.
Great.
And so this was March of '71, and they were still working on the interstate then.
Well, aren't they still working on the
90,
interstate?
well, yeah, yes, but like in Idaho, we'd go, it was a rock road, and there were these humongous dump trucks, probably right around where you're from.
More than likely.
Yeah.
They're still there, I think.
Oh my gosh, it was like we were in a covered wagon, because it was a station wagon, And so we ended up out here, and we had an apartment in Seattle for that first summer, and then we moved out to Pickering Pass, had a house there. Each of those places were $100 a month. The house had 14 acres and 200 feet of waterfront.
Wow.
People owned a dry cleaners in Tacoma, and they were going to retire there. Unfortunately, her husband died of a heart attack, and so we were living there, renting from her, and she offered to sell it to us. And, wanted $40,000 for it. Well, that might as well have been $1 million.
Right.
Right.
Can't do that. It's crazy.
We didn't have $1,000. So anyway, and then we bought our property. Oh, I'll go back one step. Kathy's sister came out. Right. She was living out here, and we had started building the house. We had built the house. I'm sorry. That was '73. We started that and moved into it in latter part of '74. And so we didn't have power, water, any of that, because there was none of that up there.
Right.
It wasn't until '79 when we paid the PUD money in aid of construction, and they brought power up to what they called Hippie Hill in town. Well, that's what I heard it was called.
I was going to ask you, what year did you cut your hair? You don't have to answer that.
76.
70, okay. I realized that after we met. I thought, I wonder when he cut his hair. All right.
Yes, when we got married.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yes. So anyway, yes, I guess I left that out, that we weren't married.
Well,
sorry.
No.
So, well, we struck out, and I don't know how my parents took it, but they were very gracious, and so were hers. And I don't know. We loved each other.
Yeah.
Katie barred the door, you know.
Right.
We're going to do this.
Right.
So in 75, her sister was living out here also, tragically died from a drug and alcohol overdose. And just so sad. And so we went back to mourn her loss and be with her folks. And, you know, we worked there for 4 months. And we had the house here and we were always going to come back. And, you know, so her death, I guess, spurred us on to, you know, what are we doing? You know, we should get married.
Right.
God is going to get married, you knucklehead.
Well, I was going to ask you during these years, where was God in this?
Yes. The bottom of the bag, you know.
Yeah.
Being young and fancy free
Right.
wasn't really in my wheelhouse for about 6 or 8 years.
Yeah. Well, you made the comment to me when we were talking that you were in charge.
Well, yes, there you go. And yeah,
you were calling the shots. You were making the decisions. So
that's right.
Didn't need God for that.
Yeah, you know, I mean, in college, you know, you think you're making the shots, but if you're playing football, you're not making the shots.
Right.
You'd be here then.
Right.
You know. So yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said you would go to church when you went back home and visit, but other than that, I mean, when you weren't in the old pattern of, hey, this is what I do. I'm in my parents' place. This is what we do.
I'm in my pattern, but on my own, I'm not thinking about it.
Right. Right.
So I wasted a few years there, but I think I had what it took to never lose sight.
Right. Right.
So I credit my parents.
Yeah. Well, the foundation that is, it
It's a lot.
seems to be, over and over in many of the journeys we've listened to. It's that
Is that right?
foundation.
Uh-huh.
It's there. We go back to the foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were married in 76?
Yes. And so we got married on Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ever do that.
Okay, I won't.
You can't get a table when you want to go out to dinner. So we a week before we were married, Kathy went in for a pregnancy test, and lo and behold, she was pregnant. We found out a week before we were married. So, sorry. I remember telling my parents, you know, my dad, I told you, Clara. I knew it. Sorry, Dad. You know, but I mean, I look back and it was really, you know, it was more of a graceful blessing from God. You know, we lost Nancy.
Yeah.
Kathy's parents were just, well, grief-stricken, as we all were, you know.
Sure.
And it was this joyous counterpoint to that.
Yeah.
So, do I feel guilty? Am I grateful? Yeah. I mean, it's just what the doctor ordered, you know. Yeah. And so we came back, and it wasn't long after that, Adam was just a little toddler, you know. Kathy started going, went creeping into BCBC, Belfair Community Baptist Church at that time. And kind of liked it there. People were real nice. And, and so I reluctantly followed her.
So
A few times later.
here we go to church again.
Yeah. Let me see about that. So, it was pretty much every Sunday, and we got into the rhythm. The kids did Sunday school and pageants. And, it was a great place, great people.
Adam and Renee, right? Your two kids.
Adam and Renee, yes. Adam in 76 and Renee in 79. And so we even sang with Wes Moore, Michael's dad.
Yeah.
I sat next to him in choir for years. Prince of a guy. Very smart. Irene, what a dear she was. Because there was no church down here. So they were members of BCC now.
Got her community church now.
Yes. Singing next to him, he had pearls of wisdom all the time. Thursday night rehearsal, and then Sunday 10:30, or was it 11? Anyway, that was a fun time. Choir was awesome. We did that religiously.
Yeah.
Kept us coming back.
Yeah.
I miss choirs. I miss hymns. But, that's okay.
Yeah.
We'd play them at home. Kathy on the piano and me on the flute. So we'd do Christmas carols and hymns. That was the extent of my expertise.
Yeah.
I had it in 5th, 6th, and 7th grade.
There you go.
Then I got to quit.
Well, we'll have a special Christmas edition of you singing hymns and playing your flute. We can arrange that.
I know.
I'll talk to the worship guy.
No, over there.
Okay, we'll edit that part out. So you were there 25 years.
Yeah,
Around there,
I'm going to guess and say about 25 years.
Yeah.
Had to have been.
Yeah.
And then during the summer, choir would be off. And about that time, the pastor at our church, David Daroff, he was instrumental in wanting to start a seed church here. And so he was pretty insistent on that. And I was actually on the search committee who found him.
How about that?
Another bit of trivia.
Well, there you go. And this is the first trivia show, the last episode of season 1 for the journey, but the first for the trivia show.
It just shows how old I am.
How wise you are.
Yeah, there you go. So we would come down here during the summer, and we had met Terry Oliver at fall retreat at Camp Bethel. He was a speaker at that, and lo and behold, he became the pastor here, and so we'd come down and visit every once in a while during the summer. And Kathy thought, well, gee, I'd like to go there. So we talked to our pastor, and said, well, I'd like to go down here. There's nothing wrong with BCBC. We just like to go down here. Yeah, fine. No hard feelings. And so we transferred down here. Well, I didn't transfer. Talked with Terry and said, well, how do we become members? And he goes, well, we don't really have a membership.
Just show up.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So here we are.
Here we are. Yeah, and our kids went through scary times. Our married life wasn't
It was married
perfect.
life. It was married life.
That's right.
Yes.
There were times we wondered if our kids would make it, and by the grace of God, He was there. It's been a trip.
Yeah. Yes.
I guess. Yeah. So I can't. Did I miss anything?
Well, not that I have written down so far.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we had talked, and I guess I was going to ask you two questions, but it really goes with you. You have there's a video we're going to show. It's a video of Kathy, about a minute long or so.
Yeah.
So at the end of our talking, we'll show the video. So please stick around and watch that video. But just kind of walk us through that. You have, when you were explaining to me the video and talking about that.
Oh yes.
And I think it came out of sort of, as you look back, as you look at your journey.
Yes.
What is it that you want to leave us with?
Well, I just wanted to read a couple of passages. First, I want to read Kathy's favorite, and that was James 1. Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. And then mine, which I've turned to a lot in the last 14 months since Kathy died. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. So,
and that was Psalm 34.
Yes. And I am both of those, and have been for actually since she passed away, and 18 months before that, as she declined. And so last Sunday in your sermon, you talked about the rich man, what must I give up? And so when Kathy died, I was like opened up in a way that I had not experienced in my life. And I come back to that verse, he's close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. And losing her has crushed me in spirit, and yet he's there and has, I don't know, as bad as it is, he's like the savior. It's a remarkable sense. My journey is not done. This is part, it's like 3 parts: growing up, life with Kathy, and life without Kathy. God isn't done with me, and I hope that there'll be a lot more to come for me. So I just wanted to hear her voice one time, and so this 60-second video is on the Camino de Santiago, from the Pyrenees in France to Santiago, northwest coast of Spain. It's a 500-mile walk, and it was a dream of Kathy's, and so we did it. And so I look back on that as being a blessing from God that we were able to do this. We were told that if we came to any church, that we've got to go in. And so we went in a lot of cathedrals and a lot of churches, and there aren't a lot of people in them. You can worry about that, but oh my gosh, it was just awesome. All of them, the sense and everything about it was just something. And so this little clip is we're up in the mountains. I don't know, midway maybe, I can't remember exactly where, and so it's just her voice looking around a valley that we were resting, exhausted. It was an experience worth remembering, and I thank God for that. And so, part of that one verse is, sell everything and follow me and love your neighbor as yourself. So, what could be simpler than that, and yet harder? So, that's my story. Thanks.
Randy, thank you for joining us on the journey today.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're with us. So, folks, we will close this last episode of our first season of the journey with this video from Kathy. Thanks for joining us this episode. Thanks for joining us this season. And we look forward to the next. May God bless you.
Okay, today is Wednesday, and can you hear the cowbells? Every cow has a bell. And we have climbed way up high again, and it's been like climbing our hill for miles and miles. And there's snow up in the hills. Hi, Randy.
Hello.
Up in the hills over here again. But this valley is so pretty that we're climbing through, and just some cows eating grass, and us, and some other pilgrims. Love you all.
The journey begins at the narrow gate. The journey, Jesus beckons me to roam. The journey, where the path is straight. The journey that takes me home. The journey takes me home.